Yo, what's up? What's up? What's up?
What's going on, guys?
How y'all
What's
doing
up?
today?
It's
Good.
FatJesusLive. You guys usually see me excited, but this is not the stream I want to be into today.
Well, you ain't have to be here. You ain't have to be here. So this stream right here is basically like our service to our country. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
people don't talk about their service to their country. A lot of people are
Is this the picture you use? Oh my
I
gosh.
told you. I
All right,
was.
the guy on the right, I don't recognize him anymore. That's me when I was in high school, guys. I was a cadet sergeant major. So I was in 4 years of high school. My father adamantly says, you're going in to 4 years of high school, and I need you to be in JROTC. I said, okay. And that's the type of kid I was, you know. And my father was in Vietnam. So he was a POW in Vietnam. He was a prisoner of war. And he told me stories, really horrific stories of him doing some horrific stuff that he was forced to do to survive. So I don't want to bring that up here because we'll be canceled out from YouTube and all those stuff. But it was any story you've heard out of Vietnam, it's true. It's real. It's really adamantly true. And my father suffered through it. He had Agent Orange, the peeling of the skin, everything. And you would hear him wake up in the middle of the night screaming and yelling, and he was crawling on the ground. So I suffered through my life as a teenager with my father suffering from PTSD. Before PTSD, they called it what was it? Shell shock. So PTSD didn't exist in the past. It was called shell shock. Who else in my family had PTSD? My grandfather had PTSD. He was in World War One, and he drove the trucks into World War One into Germany, and he was driving the soldiers, and he was the truck driver. And that was in its own the worst job in the world because the bombs were dropping from Germany while he was trying to drive on a straight road. And he was driving all around onto the grass, onto the hills, into the, these big what do you call the trucks, guys?
Troop carrier.
No. It's not a troop carrier. It's there's a special name. They gave it a name. Do you remember Rebirth? They call them the old trucks. And we drove them in the Air Force. They repurposed these trucks, these World War II
Deuce and a
trucks.
half. Or
The
5
deuce and a half. That's right. And I had to learn how to drive that damn thing. And I tell you what, it might as well had a crank in the front because that's
Deuce
as
and a half
close.
would go, man.
That's as close as it gets to a crank in the front and a 1900 vehicle. Dude, the deuce and a half, you had to do so much shit. You had to open up the trunk. You had to not open up the trunk, the lid in the front. You had to check all this stuff. You had to press a button. You had to go inside the trunk. You had to press the button on the bottom. You had to go and you had to put it to the lid. And then love your and then you had to go. I'm like, dude, this thing is huge. It's the first time I ever experienced a massive truck, and I was gonna learn how to drive it. And they gave me a license for that, and I actually drove a deuce and a half. And then all of a sudden, I remember my mother telling me that my father drove a deuce and a half. I was so excited when I first saw the deuce and a half in the Air Force, and I was like, I want to learn. I was a kid. I was a teenager because my grandfather drove it, and I couldn't believe they existed. And yeah, but I rarely drove it. I'm gonna be honest with you because we never deployed it in South America. We flew mostly into South America. So my MOS was security police or security personnel. Today, they changed the MOS to police forces. So I was a federal police officer. Literally, I was a federal police officer. I did law enforcement and security police in the Air Force. They were still defining the security police role. So I worked the front gates, checking badges. I also was deployed into dealing with crime rates on base, and also humping the planes and counting rivets is what they call me. That was what they would say. So if you hung out by a plane, and it was hard work. It wasn't really hard work. It was hard work trying to stay awake because it was so boring. You had to stay by the plane the whole night for like 8 to 10 hours, and it was very difficult because there was
When I
nothing on.
retired from the Air Force in 2018, they called those guys Security Forces Squadron,
Yeah.
SFS.
And we
Don't
were
know
called
what-
before that
Yeah,
security
that's
police.
crazy. You know what? So it's crazy, Fat Jesus, because Chris was both Army and Air Force. So he was what Air Force first, then you went to the Army, right?
No, I did the Army
the
first.
and then the Air Force. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because I was
And
like,
let me
dang,
ask you a question. Did they train Air Force, Army? Did you ever see that training?
What's that?
Did
Say
the
again?
Army train Air Force personnel in tech school when you were serving?
No, because I was a machinist. Had I been an airframer, what they call sheet metal, then I would have trained with the Navy and the Army all in one school. But aircraft
Hear
metals
that,
tech
everybody. Hear
was
that.
just Air Force.
You hear that we are intercombined. We are, when you enter the military, you are not just in one military service, but you're in all of them, because the training is not in just the one service. I was in the Air Force, but I was shipped to Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Oh no, man! I was
air
in
base ground defense.
Bro, I was aviation in the Army. I ain't never messed with nobody from the Air Force. I ain't seen nobody.
There was no technicality you needed in the Air Force.
No, legit, like straight up. Like that's funny you say that, because I was in the Army. My MOS was 15 Papa. They changed it when I went in, and they changed it to 15 series. And I ain't never seen nobody Air Force wise except
Chris
if I was
and I,
deployed.
we're special. You know, we were
No,
the top of our class.
But that's what I'm saying is that I was actually aviation, so I never even got to see. The only time I've ever seen anybody else from different branches was when I was deployed. Like if most people will go to the Air Force side of the base to go to the DFAC if they had one. Or if the PX was always on that side if you was deployed, like when I was deployed in both in Iraq and Afghanistan, all four of the times that I was deployed, actually, they all the bases were, or the PX and all that stuff was on the other side of the base. So, and even the hospitals, and that's even more interesting, because this whole discussion is about, you know, not just our military service, but what actually happened after that. You know, we you know, a lot of people say, you know, they go around, and the reason why I brought this up is because we all talked about how, you know, when somebody finds out you was in the military, they always say, thank you for your service. So let me ask you guys, how do you?
I hate that. I hate it. Some people love it, enjoy it. They're narcissistic with it, but I hate it. I hate it because I came home and the people I was with didn't, you know, I mean, I have memories of the people I was with, and when I came home, they were no longer there. And that itself was played in my mind, in my brain a lot. So
yeah, but how do you react from that though? Like,
in a way of condolences all the time, like a feeling of sadness and despair.
What do you say to them? What do you say to the person?
I don't
You just ignore
anything. I mean, in the beginning, when I was troubled mentally, because I had a lot of mental issues when I first got out. I'm going to be honest with all of you. When you meet somebody from the military that leaves the military, be sympathetic, please, because there's a lot going on with that person mentally. Deep down inside, they are going through a lot. They suffered a lot. And then when they leave the military, they don't know where their place is going to be at. They're not prepared for the real world, because they've been through so much in the military that now they got to go out to the civilian world. And that's the hardest part, is trying to do the transitioning.
Well, what about you, Chris? How do you respond to that?
I acknowledge that they said it. I usually say something like, I appreciate that. And then change the subject to whatever else we're talking about. It is weird.
Yeah.
Like
what else are you gonna do?
I don't know how it got started, because we're an all volunteer.
Well, military. I mean, if you're a civilian, thank you for your service. I mean, they have family members that are in the military. What else are they gonna say? No, thank you. So the best thing to do is this is like just. But I was asking because, you know, that's a question that I had. How did that start?
right, Chris? Like, how did that start? Like, how did that?
I don't know when it started.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, it's better than the alternative. The guys come back from Vietnam and got spat on.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
My father talked about that all the time. All the time. He was so angry at the world, and he blamed it on Lyndon Johnson, on President Lyndon Johnson for all of that crap.
Let's think about this for a second, though. That's a good point, Chris. The Vietnam thing, because, you know, we go to war, or we think we go to war because we want to protect our country. We want to protect our family and friends and everybody on here. You know, when somebody says thank you for your service, I usually say it's an honor. You know, because I knew what I was getting to. You made a great point, Chris, about saying that it was a volunteer work. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, okay, I volunteered. You know, I've been wounded in Afghanistan, and I was actually considered dead for 30 seconds. So I was actually the first medevac mission for my unit. My unit was aviation. We was 6101. It was a medevac unit, and I was actually their first medevac. So it wasn't a training exercise. Yeah, I was the first one. You know, and that was actually when we did the left seat, right seat. So that's basically, you know, switching units from, you know, one unit taking over from the other unit and all that other stuff. So, you know, when I hear it, I say it's an honor, but then I think about all the stuff that I've achieved since then. You know, even with the ailments that I have. I mean, me and Chris wanted to talk about this. We both have Parkinson's disease. I was told I had Parkinson's because I have tremors. So they say that's part of Parkinson's disease. It's not necessarily like how severe it is or how bad it is. It's just they classify it. They have different classes for it. And it's interesting because when Fat Jesus was saying that it used to be called shell shock, you know. A lot of guys came back and they start twitching their heads, hands start shaking, you know, eyes start twitching and stuff like that. And, you know, a lot of people have these ailments. And I know with me, I had to learn how to, I actually still have the car model when I was in the hospital that I was painting and stuff like that. It was so hard, you know, when you remember these old school cars.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I you know, I was in the hospital. And I still have this. This is old, you know, trying to draw paint on it and stuff like that, trying to better my hands. Playing video games. Even a lot of people, I remember when a lot of people
video games.
A lot of people would say don't play video games when you're younger. But now, you know, today having a controller in your hand and trying to control your breathing,
having control, control of your life, control of your body.
Yep. It all goes in there. So let me ask you, Chris, with your Parkinson's disease, how did you find out? And I know you said it happened after your military experience. Like, how did it come about for you?
Well, I was actually in the Air Force when it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I joined the Air Force, went to MEPS, just like anybody else who joins the military. Yep. And the two doctors who did my physical, neither one of them could tell that I had Parkinson's. I was a really good athlete.
What are the chances that maybe you didn't have it? You didn't have it when you first got in.
I absolutely did.
Did any of your regular doctors ever know that you had Parkinson's?
Yeah. Because the problem with Parkinson's is it's a clinical diagnosis. And you go see your shoulder's hurting. So what do? You go to a sports medicine guy. You go to an orthopedist guy. They'll be like, oh, let me treat your shoulder. They don't ask about anything else. They don't ask about your sleep patterns. They don't ask about your mood. They don't ask about depression. They don't ask, hey, are you by chance constipated? Hey, by chance, do you have any kind of tremor after exercise or exertion? Like, all those things go into Parkinson's. It's like a list of 40 symptoms. And unless you're a really good neurologist or a neurologist that's in the movement disorder specialist outside of the house, you're not going to catch it. I mean, it's almost impossible to catch it unless you see the right kind of doctor, because they call it practicing medicine for a reason. And usually folks will try to hone in on whatever your chief complaint is for that day and write you a script. And there's no quick fix for Parkinson's in that arena.
But here, check this out. I did a quick search and everything like that, but It says right here, AI says, yes, certain toxic chemicals and environmental hazards in the Air Force frequently used or encountered in the Air Force and broader military service are strongly linked to increased risk of developing Parkinson's disease.
Of course.
Yeah,
Like
so he might
only 10%
lurthine,
of Parkinson's,
TCE.
only 10% of Parkinson's patients have it from hereditary genetic.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say.
90% have it from environmental factors, whether it's
I'm not trying
bad
to
air, bad water, bad food, bad drugs, head injuries, trauma from combat, exposures to toxic chemicals, oil fires, hydrazine on an F-16, jet fuel from a helicopter, the list goes on and on
machinery.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Engines, aircraft engines.
Yeah, the genetics. But that's interesting because you know, like you said, if you had a great doctor, then you know there's a chance of possibly.
I mean, that's not me besmirching doctors. I mean, the orthopedist was doing what he thought was right.
Yeah.
My shoulder was killing me. The reason why my shoulder was killing me is because my brain stopped doing an uptake of dopamine to control the muscles. And so when the right side of my brain died off from those dopamine receptors, it presented on the left side of my body. And my shoulder was like frozen. My troops, when I was a sergeant in the Army, this was 1998, 1999, my troops started calling me gunslinger. Because when I walked, my left arm didn't swing. It always looked like I was getting ready to draw on somebody, like I was going to pull up my 6-shooter out. And that's a very early warning of Parkinson's disease. If you're walking and you don't have natural arm swing, that's a telltale sign you got Parkinson's. There's other telltale signs like REM sleep disorder. If you act out your dreams all the time, that's a pretty good indicator you might have Parkinson's. Everybody focuses in on tremor and dyskinesia. And
Michael J. Fox, that's what they look at.
But that's usually not.
That's extreme Parkinson's right there. There's like certain levels of Parkinson's, right?
Well, there's stage 5, 1 through 5. But
let me ask you this, Chris. How did it affect you in the military? Or did it affect you in the military?
Well, I was on deployment, TDY assignment to Naval Air Station Fallon in Nevada. We were training up 3 CAGs, 2 Navy, 1 Marine Corps. Because of my fighter wings mission, we did CD'd, suppression of enemy air defense and destruction of enemy air defense. So we would fly 2 to 4 ships out in front, blind the enemy radar, confuse the enemy radar, and then launch harm missiles to destroy the enemy radar. No radar, you can shoot all the missiles you want, you ain't gonna hit us. So that's our mission. And then once we do our mission, we peel off, and then come the Super Hornets to have all their fun. The original murder Hornets. So we were training up those F-18 pilots to be able to communicate with the F-22s over Syria to go bomb ISIS. And so I'm in the desert in Fallon, Nevada, and it's high elevation. This is the high desert in Nevada. And, you know, the CNC on site's like, you guys better be careful. This elevation will sneak up on you. And he wasn't kidding. And I go into the gym because it's freezing cold in that desert. And I'm on an elliptical machine. I notice all of a sudden my left leg just stops working. Like I can't push off with my left leg. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I'm like, maybe it's the elevation. Maybe I'm just not sleeping well. I don't know. I kind of just put it in the back of my head. But then as that 2.5 weeks went on, I started dragging my left foot. It was like I didn't know where the ground was in relation to my foot. Like weird stuff was going on. And then my left hand and arm started shaking. And it kept getting worse and worse. And I mean, it spiraled kind of big on me. It was kind of like it all hit at once. I don't know why. But like I said, I mean, I've had it since my mid-20s, early 20s even, when I was in the Army. Because I only did a year of college and then went in the Army. So, you know, I joined the Army as a 19 or 20-year-old. So I'm 24 and I'm already experiencing symptoms of Parkinson's, but I have no idea, you know, as most people would not. They go several years before someone starts putting 2 and 2 together and says, hey, let's go send you to a neurologist. And that's really what happened. I got back from Nevada, went and saw my primary care physician. She's like, well, let's do a quick exam. I lay down on the table and my arm is literally bouncing up in the air. It's moving that much from the dyskinesia. And she's like, okay, I'll be right back. She goes get a couple of doctors. They come in. They're like, yeah, we're going to get you to see a neurologist. They knew something was wrong. And my symptoms were so bad at that point when I got diagnosed 7 months later, that the neurologist that I saw locally sent me to a specialist at MUSC in Charleston who was an ALS specialist, Lou Gehrig's disease. They thought I had ALS because my symptoms were so acute. Now, fortunately, I didn't have ALS because that's a horrendous disease. Parkinson's is no fun, but ALS is truly a nightmare. Average person from the time of diagnosis of ALS, they live on average 2 years.
Oh.
And it's a pretty bad 2 years. There's no winning with that disease. At least with Parkinson's, we have therapies, we have surgeries, we have drugs. ALS is brutal. So then that started my whole journey through the Parkinson's diagnosis and trying agonist drugs and trying out all these other drugs and then taking away too many of the drugs and having doctors say, oh, you need the surgery, DBS surgery. And we can get into that too, about the DBS surgeries. I had 3 of those. But as far as how the military treated that, as soon as I started having issues where I couldn't climb up on top of an F-16 to work on it, they basically said, nope, we're taking you off worldwide deployment list. We're taking your flight badge. You go sit by the phone. And basically I answered the phone when I would go to drill duty, and I would dispatch guys out to maintenance orders on the flight line. That's all I could do. I couldn't go to the flight line. I couldn't even get anywhere near it. They didn't want to take a chance of me injuring myself because I had all kinds of gait issues, balance issues. I still have that. Even after surgery, I still had that stuff. So, there was no making deals or negotiating some kind of work thing. It was, you've got a serious disorder, and the DOD says that if you have Parkinson's disease and a whole list of other diseases, you can't be in the military. So they started the process of medically boarding me out. That was, as soon as they found out I had Parkinson's, that's the road we went down. And that was a pretty long road, about 3 years before I finally got my retirement and got out of the military.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had any issues before the military. And, I didn't even have a single headache. I can't even remember. Like, I remember people saying they had headaches, and I was like, what is a headache? And they would say it's pain in your head. And I was like, I never had that, right? Yeah, lucky me at that time, right? And, I never had any shaking of the hands. I never had anything with Parkinson's issues or anything like that. I have to look this up before I say it, because I got to make sure that it's accurate on which one I'm saying, because I actually have Parkinson's and restless leg syndrome. So what's so crazy is that I can't sleep at night. The whole reason why I have trouble sleeping at night is not just because of my PTSD and thinking about what I have going on. That comes, and it's exaggerated mostly because of the simple fact that I'm always up, so I'm always thinking about it, so it never goes away, basically. But when I lay down in my bed, my legs just feel like, nah, yo, you ain't going to sleep. So I always have to move my legs, right? And I have to get up sometimes, and then I'll have to walk around the house or something like that, walk outside, because my legs I just can't stop moving, and it bothers me.
Yeah, restless leg syndrome is tied into Parkinsonism. So it's not uncommon for someone before getting a Parkinson's diagnosis to get a restless leg syndrome diagnosis. Those kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
I actually was on Requip.
Now this is,
and I was allergic to it and had to take me off of it.
Yeah, and this is actually an interesting comment from one of our things. So Chris here is actually Native American.
That's why I laughed.
Yeah, so Vincent Davis says, y'all fought for settler devil army like stone cold sellouts, land back to the natives. Now, what's interesting is because this is a perfect time to promote who Chris is. So Chris right here, this guy right here, he's an author of 2 books. His recent book is now a bestseller. Put those books out real quick. That's the first one. Yeah, that's the first one right there. We did a video discussing on that, the history of the Kahari tribe. And then where's your other one at? You got it. It's on your Kindle.
It's on your Kindle.
Yeah, it's on Kindle. What's the title of it again?
The Siouan tribes of the Carolinas and Virginia.
Yeah, so that's the one that went bestseller. So congratulations to Chris.
Congratulations, bud.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Good job, Chris.
So Chris actually writes about the Kahari tribe, which is a Native American tribe that is not really well known or talked about enough. And when I say enough, rarely at all. I actually have an Oxford University book that I showed Chris, and they only mentioned the Kahari tribe out those 900 pages just one time in one sentence. And when I seen it, I took a picture of it and sent it to Chris, of course, but not as much. So he actually gives the whole history of the Kahari tribe. So congratulations on that. So Vincent Davis, when you said that, it was kind of interesting because Chris is actually Native American. Matter of fact, he has many tribes, bloodline tribes in him.
Yeah.
So
and I'm actually very proud to say that Native Americans join and serve in the United States military at far greater levels than other groups within the country. Far greater levels.
Were they in World War I and World War II, or just started in World War II?
Native Americans have fought alongside Americans
since Civil War, right? Yeah,
since the beginning.
Yeah,
I mean, the Battle of New Orleans wouldn't have been won without a bunch of natives down there fighting with old crazy Andrew Jackson. I mean, seriously, we've been in every single conflict that's ever been fought on this land because we were here first.
I mean,
even France, when they were here in Louisiana, they fought alongside with the indigenous as well.
Yeah, I mean, the French and Indian War was a lot of that was about how many native tribes could the French get on their side and how many Native American tribes could the British get on their side. And they fought a war over it because they were also fighting a war against each other over in Europe. They just fought the war over here.
Yeah. Right. So
a lot of military conflicts. And Native Americans weren't all together. There was actually Native Americans against other Native Americans. There's no such thing as
pan-nativism. That never existed. Just like there's no such thing as pan-Africa.
I was going to say that's like saying. I was going to say it's like saying that no human is going to be angry at each other. It's like humans getting along. Everybody. It don't matter who you are. People are going to dislike you. You know, it is not even just even that. You know, because I know where you was getting with this at Fat Jesus is that a lot of people say that, you know, and it's true what Chris said. Same thing for Africa. They say that Africans and Native Americans didn't have war within each other. But I think the type of wars that they had is not the type of wars that we look at today. You know what I mean? Our wars today are much more.
Look at the Native Americans now, though. They're kind of like pan-native right now, aren't they? Like they're together. And when they get together and they compete in the competitions with the dance competitions and everything, they're competitive in the dance in their tribal, right?
It depends. I wish that were the case, but maybe I'm a little jaded being in North Carolina. There's lots of examples of where jealousy and envy. Look, man, Native Americans are people. We're just people.
Bro,
everybody else. Jealousy and envy always has a way of creeping in on stuff. And the next thing you know, this tribe's ticked at this tribe, and this tribe going to this tribe to try to backstab this tribe, and it's crazy, man.
Bro, not even that. Let's put it like this. This is going to be hypothetical, but I'm going to base this off of actual things that I've experienced. I've been in the military. I was in the military 13 years before I got wounded and had to get medically retired. In my time, I served 4 times in combat, 2 to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan. I served along with every different type of person that you can think of from around the world. But I will say this. Even though I served with people who had wanted to protect their country or would do whatever, forget all that. Even though I served with people who was in the military period, I was still called the N-word by certain individuals. Literally. I had a sergeant first class slip up and called the N-word. Okay. Got mad at one of his soldiers and said, "You stupid N." I mean, this dude was from Virginia. Okay. West Virginia at that. The whole reason why, and the whole, I tell my story about why I got blown up. So the reason why I harp a lot on I hate racism is because that sergeant first class that I was talking to you about, this whole unit felt like there was a black or white issue. This was during the Trayvon Martin thing. A lot of people were going one way or the other on stuff like that. And I was a staff sergeant. I was an E6. I wasn't supposed to be where I was at. Let alone, matter of fact, I was separated from my unit when we was on our when we got to our next base. So basically, when I talked about the left seat and right seat thing, one unit takes over the other. Everybody knew that, okay, we're going to 3-101, 6-101, 7-101, whatever the people are here. And then you got the groups from North Carolina, 82nd Airborne and stuff like that. We was replacing them. We're sending people back. So they already had a manifest on who they had to send back to the main base in Bagram and all that other stuff. So they knew how many soldiers they had to house and all this other stuff. Well, I was actually housed, and I was new to the unit. I had just got there. I mean, I was fast tracking. I was already staff sergeant like 9-10 years. I mean, half these people were like in the military 15, 16, 17 years, still E6s. They weren't, they couldn't pass their PT test. I'm over here running past them. I had, a permanent profile, but I was still outrunning them. I had 2 surgeries on both my shoulders from the first time I was in Iraq. And I went through so much stuff. And I think, like you were saying, Chris, it was a lot of jealousy in there. I was a young staff sergeant. I was fast tracking through the military. I've been deployed already, more than half the people that was in my unit. Matter of fact, when I went to WLC and PLDC and all that other stuff that everybody talks about, bro, I was stacked when I went there. It was people. Matter of fact, I got deployed 4 times before I even went to what is it called now? BNOC. It was BNOC.
Yeah,
now, but
BNOC's for E6.
Yeah, I didn't, bro. I was deployed so many times before I even went to freaking like for Irwin in California, because there was so many. Because every time we deployed back to back, so our schooling and stuff always had to get pushed to the side. So we always had to get waivers and memorandums and stuff like that to go to these schools and stuff, so that way we wouldn't, miss our time and grade and service and because we was good whatever we did, the promotions and all that stuff. And when they seen my my rank and how long I've been in and what schooling I have, some of them were like, you haven't been to this schooling yet, you haven't done this. I was like, man, I've been deployed 4 times already, 3 times before that, right? So I seen the jealousy, and then I got replaced with one of their best friends. Now this dude got promoted, battlefield promoted. Now, I don't believe in battlefield promotions too much, not especially what we did as far as MOS. We weren't infantry. We weren't special forces or anything like that. We was just working. Some of us would go outside the wire. Some of us would. But for the most part, this dude, he didn't do anything. He could barely pass a PT test at that. But he got a battlefield promotion because they liked him a lot. I mean, he was a very likable guy for them, right? And because I think honestly, the skin color, because it was only but like maybe a couple of brown people in there anyway. And they always got the shit in the stick of a lot of stuff. But I bring all that up because I was wounded because they gave me his room. I was supposed to get his room when we landed at Fob Shank. And because he didn't come and I told them who I was, I literally was told by the sergeant that was assigning all this our stuff, because we had just got off a mission. He said, hey, look, they say you ain't coming over here. You got to go to the other side. So I was on the other side of the base with the foreign military guys from different military places. And on that side, they had already breached that wall plenty of times before. They knew about this. So, they did it again. I got wounded, but when they threw some rockets at us and stuff like that. And then they was all like, oh, man, how did you, why wasn't you in this room and all this? Man, I cursed everybody out when I got better after that. Like, I told them straight up what happened because of the fact that, but I think it was, they listened because of that staff sergeant slipped up and said that N-word. And it wasn't just that. And I bring that up because even though you serve with these people, with people, it doesn't matter whether they're going to like you or not. You see what I'm saying? It just it's a matter of power that people, once they get it, they'll use it. So when you said like earlier, Fat Jesus, like, you're saying, talking about, or, getting towards like, everybody works together. That's not necessarily true. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's only doing it for their own personal reason. That's why they have their own personal gain.
I used to tell people all the time the military is like holding up a mirror to American society. We like to think the best about our soldiers, our Marines, our airmen, our sailors, but to be realistic, they come from the same America that we live in right now.
Exactly.
And you don't got to go far down the street to find a criminal or to find someone who will stab you for your wallet, or, people who just hate each other because you weren't born like me. I mean, we pull from that pool of people to populate the military.
Yeah,
and so that's what bad apples still make it in, unfortunately.
So when he was talking about,
we demonize people so easily too. And in the case of Trayvon Martin, the gentleman Zimmerman, he killed and murdered a child, but he felt that he was in the right for doing so because he had this hero complex, just like people do when they're in the military, when they're defending our country. And that's something we should address sometimes and think about on why we joined the military and why people join the FBI, why people are firefighters. Do they have hero complexes, or are they doing it because they're doing it for service? Are they doing it because they were forced to go and join it?
Well, let's talk about that. What was the reason why you joined? What was the one reason why you joined?
Brutally honest, people, because my family has a long history of being in the military. I felt like I was pressured and pushed into joining the military. My father was in it. My grandfather was in it. My great-grandfather, unbeknown of my grandfather, was in World War I. I found out through the DNA profile that my great-grandfather was in World War I. I saw all his medals and all that stuff. But my grandfather didn't even know that his own father was in World War I, because he was from a family of 14 or 12 boys, 12 boys and like 8 girls. So they separated the girls from the boys on a girl farm and a boy farm back in the early, like in late 1800s and 1900s. And this is in the island of Puerto Rico. It's to keep from incest from happening. So he never got a chance to spend time with his father, and his father never got a chance to communicate his past history. Or my great-grandfather just suffered also from shell shock and didn't want to talk about it. That's a possibility. I never got to meet my great-grandfather, but I did get to meet my grandfather, and that was a great joy. He smoked a lot of cigarettes, and he died of cancer. And then my mother just passed away of cancer as well. My mother felt like she had a duty to perform in government functions, so she joined a certain government agency as well. And my father was in Vietnam. He was in the Army as well. So everybody in the military, except for my son, my 2 sons, have not joined the military. So apparently it has cut from my kids. My kids did not like the idea. I think this new generation has changed a lot, and they I guess they smart. I wanted them to join. I didn't say don't join. No, I didn't say that. I said I wanted them to join the military, but their mothers didn't want them to join because I suffer from PTSD, and their mother went through that with me. She adamantly didn't want them to go and be in the military because she didn't want them to go through what I went through, thinking that that's what they're going to go through. But everybody's different. That's what I told her. But
what about you, Chris? What was it that made you join?
I wanted to join the military out of high school, but I had lots of colleges recruiting me for football. And I mean, I was definitely college material. I was in all college prep courses all the way through high school. And my mom was pretty much like determined to get me into college. So I told the recruiter, hold off. My best friend, my senior year, he died. We were talking about going into the Navy on the buddy program to be pararescue swimmers. But he was killed in a car accident. So that probably solidified me going to college and just put the military on hold indefinitely. Well, indefinitely lasted all of half a year. Came back home on Thanksgiving break, saw my recruiter and said, "Hey, I'll take that ASVAB. Let's see what I qualify for." I took the ASVAB and just aced it. And the recruiter's like, "You can have any 200 jobs in the Army you want." And so, I mean, that pretty much set the table for me to join. I have a long, long history of service in the military in my family on both sides. I'm related to General George Gordon Meade. He was the commander of the Army of the Potomac at Gettysburg.
Oh, that's pretty dope, bro.
Yeah, he's like my 5th grade granduncle.
Dang, y'all
That's what,
both y'all.
Part of the reason why my
history.
pen name is Meade is because that's my mom's family. I honor my mom's family by using that last
so
name.
are you getting that money from the telescope?
The telescope? What are you talking about?
The Meade telescope? Are
I
you
don't
getting
know
the
about that. I
proceeds?
guess I missed out on that paycheck.
Dang, that's pretty cool, bro. Y'all both got see. The only thing that I know about any family members serving in the military was my father. The only reason why I joined was because my pops told me when I turned 18, I got to get out the house. So I was like, I don't want to go to college and I ain't trying to be struggling. So I said, the next best thing is a military. I can follow orders. I felt that was easy. Of course, there was a little bit of wanting to protect my country, but I don't really know about that. Think about it like that because of the simple fact that I was still young, I did my job well. I like I said, I was fast tracking. I didn't do it just because I was patriotic or anything like that. I mean, I'm being honest. I didn't want to go to college and I didn't want to struggle in life. So I said, hey, this is the next best thing. This is easy for me. Following orders is easy. I felt like the military was easy in a sense as far as I knew I was going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks, no matter how rough I had it. And since when I went to basic training, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and then I went to then I did my training and stuff. And then as soon as I was done, I deployed to Iraq, like immediately after I was done. So, I didn't really have any time to slow down and think about life. It was like, bam, 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 bam. And I went straight to Iraq. And then when I came back, I only came back for like, I want to say we had to go in a year between. So it was at least 12 months between. And then I deployed right back after that. So it was almost like, yo, this is easy. You know what I'm saying? All I got to do is dodge bullets and rockets and everything else for the next couple of years. And that's exactly how I was thinking, man. Like,
man, life ain't a video game, bro.
Like
you're not gonna come back from that. Jesus,
bro. I like I said, man, I did come back. I get my kill death ratio is in the positive, bro. So I'm pretty good.
I'm glad you did. I mean, we wouldn't have a successful podcast. Top 100, by the way, we're in the 80 percentile. I mean, we were in the thousands, and now we're in the top 100 podcasts on Apple Podcasts. So come check us out and check out all the other videos.
Yeah. So yeah, like I didn't. My life is I didn't have a set idea of what I wanted to do with my life.
The other thing that pushed me back to the military option was the fact that I went to a very expensive private school. I think had I gone to UNC Chapel Hill or App State or NC State, I might have would have stayed in college because at that time you could go to a state school for like $4,000 a semester. But I chose to go to Elon, which is a private school. It's very expensive. I was thinking to myself, why am I going into debt for this mess when the Army will pay for it?
That's why he's a billionaire.
And that was another reason. A part of another reason was that if I ever decide to go to college later, then the military would at least pay for it. I got to say my military experience has been wonderful. I'm like you, Chris. I when I joined, there was a lot of things going through my mind, and we both became authors after that, right? And I can say, the discipline and
yeah, man, I'm the only one that has not been an author, and I have like a freaking. I'm studying in my 6-year degree, and I still don't have a book.
Publish your parish, brother.
Yeah, and I did it, and the reason why I brought that up was because, and I think I told Chris about this before, is I wanted to have something to leave behind. A lot of people. It took me a while to realize that life is very precious, even after what happened to me in Afghanistan,
Make you an avatar.
I never ever really thought about life like that, because I was always, everything was so fast for me. You know what I'm saying? So when I joined the military, you know, I felt like this was the next 20 years doing this would be easy. You know, I can run, I can do sit-ups, I can do push-ups, as long as I just, you know, listen and take orders, it'll be easy. And there were times when I had the worst people that could have been in charge of me. Like it was a crazy feeling. Sometimes, you know, you guys remember when we was in the military, they always used to say, "Don't go to sick call because then you'll look like a punk or, you know, a bitch or something," right? Like, don't go to sick call; it makes you look weak and stuff. And then, and as I got older, you know, I always went to sick call when I was hurting, because like I said, I never really had pain in the first place. So when I'd had it, it was like something serious in the first place. So I went to go get it checked. But you know, a lot of people don't realize that when you get out, those things that you don't really pay attention to when you're in hits you when you get out, like Parkinson's disease, for instance. Fat Jesus, he talks about it all the time, about his 2 stomachs. You know, I never heard anybody have 2 stomachs before, you know, and he had to change his lifestyle and the way he eats and does things after that. And there's no telling. You guys we were all
a normal human being that eats protein, that overeats protein, gets sick. I have to actually eat more protein than the normal human being does eat protein, and I don't get sick from eating that much protein.
And just to think about, you know, we were in aviation, all the chemicals we were around, you know. I remember growing up back in the day when you worked on your vehicle. I don't remember my dad ever putting on black gloves and rubber gloves and stuff like that to do it, right? But now when you go to the shop, they definitely use black gloves even for a simple oil change, right? Yeah. And I wonder and I think, you know, cancer is a very big thing nowadays, right? Like a lot of people are getting cancer like it's like at tremendous rates, and it's scary, right? And I wonder if it's because we were so ignorant to what we were doing to our bodies, especially like when I was in the military, when I was in Iraq, I was next to blown up tanks. I find out later that's a no-go.
Yeah. That is oxidized depleted uranium that you breathing in.
That's what I'm saying. I was literally walking right past them.
And also the oil. Remember, we were just talking about that TCE.
Our helicopters would blow these things up, and I remember because back in the day we didn't have EOD like we have EOD today. When I was in Iraq in 2003, we would literally do convoy missions, and if somebody reported a UXO, is what they called it, you know, unexploded ordnance, we would take it and put it in the back of our trucks and just ride around with them. The base. That's how stupid.
Literally, my job in the Air Force, and we carried gas masks with us. Our job was to cord off areas and get people out of there in, large areas, you know, because we dealt with nuclear weapons. So
I'm saying though, this is how stupid. This is how stupid our chain of command was back then. We would ride down the road on Tampa or Orlando or whatever one you was on MSR, and somebody would report a UXO, and if sometimes they would stop and pick these things. I rode with some Atlantic UXOs in the back of my truck before, and we didn't have the Humvees that were the up armored Humvees at the time. We still had the ones that were the flabby as, you know, could barely close the door type stuff. So we didn't have that special stuff up there like we did in 2000, like later after 2003, 2004. And I also can say that like the smoke pits, that's what's affecting a lot of people too, is the smoke pits. You know, we burnt a lot of our stuff, the trash, everything you would burn, everything, and you would smell it, and the wind would catch a certain area and blow it towards you, and you breathe that stuff in, like you saying earlier, Fat Jesus. When I was in Iskandariya in Iraq the first time in 2003. I don't remember exactly what happened, but they said that one of the chemical plants exploded right outside the city. And for like a week straight, it was burning sulfur dioxide or sulfur something. Sulfur, I know is sulfur. And I actually have a memorandum, and this is the crazy thing. I actually have a memorandum from my doctor that says that we were exposed to very high levels of sulfur. and that it's supposed to stay in our memorandums. When the VA seen it, they didn't even accept that. I mean, I'm at 100% now, but they didn't accept that as a thing. Like when I was telling you guys earlier, when I had that chest X-ray, they found fissures in my chest, and I guess that's some kind of like when you breathe in the sand over there, it cuts up your lungs and stuff like that, in your chest and stuff like that. So it makes me think, like, man, we, even after the after effects of coming back from serving our military, we're still suffering from the wounds that we endured over there, or even in the service. The anthrax shots, when you, I can't remember how many. It used to be like, what, 9 shots, I think it was, or something like that.
I got the very first
14.
batch of the Jokers back in the 90s, and it was only 3 shots then. And then they found out something was wrong with them, and they don't even give those shots anymore. So now it's a series of like 8 or 9 shots.
Yeah, it's like so it's like a 9-shot series that they give you, and I think they actually dropped it down again. I know they dropped the smallpox one now, because I remember you had to get
9 shots. Oh, they took it easy on you guys. I think I got I think I got 40 shots. Like
here. Anthrax is only 90. You probably got 40 with the smallpox, because the smallpox was like 30-something shots. I think
it's a row right here, a row right here, and then a row right here, and a row right here. And I saw the blood coming out too. All the little the shot marks in there, and it was crazy.
Good example.
It's 2 machines. It's like an arm and the shots. And then they just put it down on your arms, and then they take it off like that. They didn't have the hand. They said, well, before we just had it by hand, and it would just move, and then it would just rip your arm. But now they have the arms, and then they just put it on there, and then they take it off. It's not automatic. They still have to use their hands with it, but it more settles down on you. And they say, don't move, or it'll cut your arm. Not cut your whole arm, but they scare you to death. Like your whole arm will fall off or something. So don't move.
Let me ask you this, Chris. Like what is the best memory that you do have from the military? We talk about the bad, and we always think about the bad stuff, and we always think about, the horrific things we've been through. So what is it, something that you think about that makes you feel happy about the military?
Easy for me. Super easy for me. We were in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, and we got a movement order alert to go to Kuwait. We used to say in Patriot missile units back then that we could watch CNN, and if F-117 stealth fighters took off from Holloman Air Force Base, we're getting ready to go to war. That's what we just knew. Because the Patriot missiles have to be in place before the stealth fighters land. That's just how it works. We put up that air defense umbrella to protect them expensive stealth fighters, and then they come land, and then we go do our thing. Well, on the convoy up to Kuwait, I just remember hitting the Kuwaiti border, and we stopped our convoy to refuel, and we all climbed back in our trucks and start convoying into the interior of Kuwait to head north. And on both sides of the highway, and this is the highway right along the Gulf Coast that you see from all the old Desert Storm videos. Like we went right through the town of Kafji, if you remember that battle from Desert Storm. But on both sides of this highway were whole families. I mean, families 20 deep, little kids, their grandparents, all out there waving Kuwaiti flags and American flags. They were so happy that we were coming up there. I mean, they were like dancing in the streets, and like cops were trying to drag them out of the street so our trucks could go through. They were having a party because we showed up, and it was an amazing feeling. And I just so happened to have a little bitty American flag. I think I had it up right there on my bookcase. That American flag I got from a Veterans Day parade here in North Carolina when I was a kid. My Uncle Vic served in the Army National Guard. He was a field artillery guy. I kept that flag, and I took that flag with me everywhere I deployed. I would put it in the back of my Bible, and I would take it with me. And so when I saw the American flags out, I grabbed my flag off the doghouse in my Hemet. I drove a 10-ton Hemet truck. I was hanging it out the window and driving my truck. That was incredible. That was like probably the first time, it might have been really the only time I actually felt like this overwhelming patriotism while serving. Because, I mean, at some point, serving just becomes what you do. I hate to say it's just a job. It's more than just a job, but it's something that you do. It's just kind of who you are.
Yeah.
But that moment and seeing how incredibly happy all those people were, and the fact that it was all ages, and I mean, it was great. I love that part of my career. So my best memory by far. Right behind it, number 2 was there was a super wealthy oil man in Kuwait City who invited 100 American troops and 100 British troops to his house for a Christmas feast. This guy was Muslim. He wasn't Christian, but he wanted us to have a good Christmas.
Yeah.
And this dude went all out, man. I've never seen that much food in my life. And he had music. He had a band playing like American music and British music. And we were all dancing and eating and hanging out. And this guy, as soon as you walk into his house, he had a shrine for his son. His son was an officer in the Kuwaiti Air Force, and Saddam's forces murdered his son when they invaded Kuwait. And so this dude,
is the first war or during that war?
Before Desert Storm.
Before Desert Storm.
When Iraq invaded Kuwait the first time in 1990.
Damn.
So yeah, that dude wanted to make sure he paid it forward to the coalition forces, and that was pretty cool too. But yeah, I'll never forget seeing all them families out on the streets welcoming us to Kuwait. That was awesome. You had the Kuwaiti army riding alongside us in technicals with the MG3 machine guns on top, A-10s and Apaches escorting us up the highway. I'm like, man, you ain't gonna mess with us. We got A-10s, bro.
And you know, I have a lot of them, but I think the one that matters the most to me is knowing that
there's no pictures of what I just told you guys, by the way.
The first time I came back from Iraq, I was like, man, because I didn't tell you what actually got me to join the military. So it wasn't just because what my pop said that I had to leave when I turned 18. I watched the movie Black Hawk Down. And I was like, yo, I want to go do that.
That's the video game I played.
I was like, yo, I want to go do that. And to believe it or not, the guy, the POW, that I can't remember his name.
Michael something, right?
The pilot. I can't remember. Pilot. I can't remember.
Michael Durant. Wasn't it Michael Durant?
I think I can't remember his name. Yeah, I can't remember his name. I'm gonna look it up. But he actually spoke at my graduation for PLDC or WLC. WLC. Yeah, he.
Who are you guys talking about? The
pilot from the one that got captured in Mogadishu from Black Hawk Down. Yeah, I actually got to see him in person. I was like, yo, I want to go do that. And that's when I found out about 160th and so on and so forth.
Yeah, Michael Durant, that was his name.
Yeah.
Chief Warrant Officer Michael Durant.
Was he 101st or SOAR? What was he? What
160th? 160th.
Okay.
Yeah, he went. Okay, so Michael Durant was a pilot MH-60L Black Hawk helicopter, call sign Super 64, that was shot down in Mogadishu, Somalia on October 3rd, 1993. I was in the Air Force during that time.
See, yeah, not me. I was still a child.
Yeah, I was fighting in combat, actually, literally at that time in South America, keeping drugs off of the streets. There would be way more people on drugs and dying of drugs if I wasn't doing what I was doing in South America.
You know, I gotta say, you know, I commend a lot of people who join the military, but I the whole thing when I brought about, like when you guys were talking about Native American and all that, you know, people getting along, there's no arguments or fights amongst each other. You know, one thing that I learned is even just in the military branches, I've been to enough clubs in my life and military clubs in my life to know that if you get a drunk fucking Army guy and a drunk Marine or a drunk Air Force or Navy or whoever involved, there's going to be a fight, and it's going to be Army versus Air Force versus Marines versus Navy versus.
You mean a jughead?
You know,
yeah.
You know, Coast Guard. You know, people are going to fight each other, dislike each other for whatever reasons. But I think at the end of the day, once that bullet starts flying from somewhere else other than, you know, from the enemy, all that goes out the window. And I don't understand why that doesn't apply even when there's no bullets being shot.
If somebody started shooting right outside that bar, we will all get together and start protecting everybody inside that bar.
That's what I'm saying.
We would be the only ones risking our lives, dying for everybody in that bar.
But that's what I'm saying is that we do that when one of us are in danger, but we endanger ourselves with the hate that we have within. Because, like I said, like everybody says that give everybody that went into the military props. There are a lot of people who are in the military, just like Chris said earlier, who are criminals, who are really horrible people. I know plenty of people who got kicked out the military for different reasons. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people who did some crazy things while they were in the military. Matter of fact, I remember when I came back from Iraq. Okay, I could tell this story now because it's a long time ago. But when I was in Iraq the first time, everybody thinks that, like when you saying earlier, Fat Jesus, about Vietnam and some of the stories in Vietnam, there were people, when I was in Iraq the first time, I always thought everything was a test because I was brand new in the military. When you get to your first unit, my first unit, we got deployed, right? So I thought everything was a test. Well, we used to have what was called the boom boom room in the back, right? People would go play dominoes, spades, hang out. It was the place to, get away from all the bull crap. And I would go back there, and as soon as I go hang out with some people, and I hear people drinking, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's not really a bad thing, drinking in combat, right? People were drinking, right? And I'm telling you from private, because I was a PV 2 or 3, I want to say 2, because I came in as an E1. Not only were they drinking, people were smoking weed in Iraq, bro, getting it shipped to them and stuff. Now, this is what's interesting to me. I've been around people who smoke. You can't hide that smell. So everybody had to be on this type of thing. And I talk about this because of the simple fact that everybody thinks that people, when they get deployed, that and before I even start, it wasn't black people that were smoking the weed. It was all the higher lieutenant, the major, the lieutenant, and I could have sworn that the colonel was drinking because he would come in the boom boom room too.
Sounds just like Vietnam.
Now, that's what I was saying. And a lot of people, and I bring that up because a lot of people will say, the military is one way, this, that. And some people would say, oh, you're telling secrets now, bro. This is not secrets, bro. People have videos of this. That's how stupid of them they are in some cases. Like, you remember the old school camcorders and stuff you had to hold like this? Yeah, people will set these up and do this stuff in front of them. So I'm saying not everybody who's in the military is somebody to look up to or serve. It's great that they were out there in Iraq and Afghanistan and all this stuff, but how do we know that when those soldiers' lives were lost in some of those cases, it wasn't cost because of that shit right there? Yeah. And I think about that sometimes because I'm not even kidding, bro. Like it was crazy. And I'm not saying it was my unit. This was everybody that was on that base would go to this place. It was literally called the boom boom room. They play music, stuff like that. And then when they started doing drug tests out there, that's when you started seeing all that stuff disappear. Like I knew at least 3 people in our unit that got caught up with that. 3 or 4, maybe 4. It was probably 4. And matter of fact, one of them that was out there, he never ever did anything because he lost his security clearance to do anything. But they deployed him anyway for a body, but he never could work or do anything. He did like side jobs like fill up the water buffalo. Shit, that was really about it. Just making sure the water buffalo was filled up.
He may be somebody's son's general or something.
No, he wasn't. He like I said, he lost his security clearance and he couldn't do anything. So what I'm saying is that and not only that, you got to think about what Chris was saying everywhere. We pulling people from the pool of is of a mirror of people here on social media. The way people talk behind these fake accounts and avatars and stuff like that, with all their hatred and all this stuff. These are the same people we pull into the military. And a great example of that is when they was having trouble recruiting people during the war, through the height of the war. Remember, they started letting certain people with certain crimes come into the military, as long as they got a waiver, right? I knew a guy, matter of fact, you two guys are Air Force. I knew a guy who brought marijuana on post here in our city, and later got to join the Air Force. You know, when you get a crime with certain things like that, the Air Force is supposed to be very strict about who they let in and stuff like that, but he was still able to join the Air Force. So a lot of people would say, you know, the Air Force, they don't have, you know, bad seeds or bad apples and stuff like that. And I know you guys could probably definitely say, yeah, they can't. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But just to start to show that, you know, you can have a marijuana charge and still join is amazing. And that's why I say, like, now this is where it gets interesting into our conversation, because we're at an hour, is I wanted to ask you guys, let's start with Chris. When you got out the military and you had all this stuff happen to you, what was the type of help that you seeked other than the government, like home remedies, or with your Native Americans, like how did they do, you know, certain rituals or celebrations, or I don't even know what to call it, powwows. I don't know the correct word or terminology. Ceremonies to help you or anything. Did you go through any of that stuff?
The only thing I did was trying to help out my cognition, because Parkinson's has a whole suite of cognitive decline issues, which I suffer from. And so I got real interested in genealogy, and I started building out genealogy on both sides of my family tree and getting in touch with the different Native American tribes that I had ancestors from. One easy way that I thought I could try to help my cognition is to learn the Cherokee language. I mean, that's something I did completely on my own. And I can have a little bit of conversational Cherokee. And it's a good way to connect with your ancestors. I mean, that's big in most Native American ceremony. It's about connecting with the Creator first and foremost, and with your ancestors, and looking out for your people now. What can you do for your community now? So that's probably the only thing I can really think of, honestly. I was big with the VFW. I had a great VFW post when I was living in South Carolina. I did a lot of stuff with those guys. They kind of helped me through that 3-year window of fighting for my medical retirement. You know, they were good sounding board, you know, in my corner kind of thing. But yeah, that's probably only 2 things that come to mind right now.
So nothing like what they call it, a journey through the woods, like, you know, you go through those.
No, I didn't do like a vision quest. I didn't do sweat lodges. I've never done that, honestly.
None of that. Mm-hmm. That's interesting, because, you know, when I had happened to me, you know, when I go to sleep, my dreams get very vivid. My wife says I talk in my sleep a lot.
I scream and yell in my sleep.
Yeah. So yeah. So and I noticed that when my Parkinson's and restless leg gets bad, like I noticed when I haven't slept for at least 30 something hours, because my hands will start to shake a lot. Like I know that for a fact. Like when I start, like if I'm dropping something, like I noticed that I've dropped my phone more times in my life than I've ever have in my life. And I mean, what I mean by that is,
so what case do you have on your phone?
I just have a regular case phone.
What are you talking about? Look at that. I got I got the military case on mine right there. Look how thick that thing is.
Stuff will slip out my hand. Like I've dropped my phone. I bought a lot of you know, those plastic phone cover things that you put on the screen so you don't break the screen and crack the screen. Yeah, I noticed that if I don't get enough sleep at a certain amount of time, it's at least 30 hours. I've tested it so many times because it's been so many years. things would slip out my hand because of my hands will be shaking. Also, I noticed that you said that it had a lot to do with cognitive mind things too.
Yeah, so like
Otterbox,
Parkinson's, you have lots of issues with concentration, decision making. They call it executive decisioning, something like that.
That sounds
multitasking, short term, long term memory. Like I used to have a photographic memory, like for real. Like you know how we tab our books as we read them. I could be like, I remember this quote from this Turkish proverb, and I'd go, it's on page 61. Boom, and I'd go to it, and it's there. Yeah. Like I had that kind of memory. I don't have that anymore. I wish.
I don't think I ever had that memory.
Stuff cognitively that Parkinson's. There's not a lot you can do for it. You can have 50 DBS surgery.
I didn't even know that.
I might have Parkinson's.
But you know, it's crazy because, you said, you told me before that when we first spoke about the Parkinson's disease, that when you first realized that it hit you, this was before this discussion today. I think it was like the last two. You said that that one of the things that you did try to practice was breathing. Was that still something you was doing, like breathing? I remember you saying something about breathing. Like,
I mean, if he stops breathing, he might not be alive right now.
No, like he said, because we was talking about meditation. Remember, we was talking about meditation.
Yeah, I would work in like I had a lady from Canada. She is Mohawk Indian, and I was communicating with her through LinkedIn for a while, and she had sent me a recording that she did, an MP3 recording. And it was talking about breathe like a child. And they say babies, you know they're breathing because their tummies rise and fall. And she says that a lot of times as adults, we forget that. We breathe and we hold it all in our chest kind of thing. Or we breathe very shallow. She's like, go back to your childhood before you had trauma. Breathe with your stomach swelling and falling. Concentrate on feeling the air into your lungs and then breathe out. Notice the air moving through your nasal passages as you breathe out, like very prescriptive. And I found that it just calmed me down. Like I had a hard time calming down. I was always hyper vigilant. My PTSD was at its worst. Like I just couldn't. It was a neurotic mess. So learning how to like breathe and meditate and put those two together was huge. And then I had other issues too, where my swallowing mechanism is still not great. I had to go to occupational therapy to relearn how to swallow properly. So I would choke every time I try to drink something. And you aspirate enough liquid into your lungs, you're going to end up with pneumonia. And that's the number one killer of Parkinson's patients is pneumonia, believe it or not. So yeah, I had to go through occupational therapy at the University of Florida to literally learn how to swallow again, which is kind of wild.
That's crazy you say that. I had to learn. I had problems with swallowing my food, and I never even thought to link it to Parkinson's disease or anything like that. Honestly, like when I would be hungry. I'd be the best burger sitting in front of me. The juiciest ribeye steak could be sitting in front of me. The most beautiful Texas rubbed ribs standing right in front of me with some, baked potato fully loaded. You know what I'm saying? Right on the side. And I couldn't, it would be so hard. It was like a chore to eat. And I would be chewing and chewing and chewing. And I have to grab something to drink and just to swallow it. And I was like, man, and it would smell so good. It would look so good. And I had problems. I never really in my life expected myself to come out the way that I am. I'm 42 years old now. I got a lot of, health issues that a normal 42-year-old would have. And then I have a lot of health issues that a military veteran would have. Right. Then everything in between that. I can say for my mental health has been pretty good. This passion of history. So a lot of this stuff, I found out about, and the reason why I was asking you about, if you did any ceremonies or anything like that to help you on your path and stuff like that. I was since I was big in history, I always try to connect, what historical these type of ailments. And one of them is restless leg syndrome. I found out about sleep paralysis. I have sleep paralysis, and I have restless leg syndrome. With my sleep paralysis, most people already know this when your body is still sleeping, but your mind and your eyes, your awareness is still available. You just can't move. It's like you're paralyzed. It's the worst feeling in the world. And then you always have some kind of scary element that comes with it, like some kind of shadowy.
The Hat Man.
Yeah, the Hat Man. Exactly, 100%. And so with my sleep paralysis, I was looking it up, and I was like, how can I counter this? Because it will freak me out. Like it would really freak me out. And I looked into it, and that's when I learned about what they call it, sleep paralysis, astral projection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to practice and looking into astral projection. I looked into the Native Americans and the ideas of how to separate your mind from your body through the Buddhist, meditation and different chakras and all this other stuff. And one thing that I learned is that everybody says that we can control our body. Like we can get rid of our ailments. Subconsciously, we can do it. Do you know who Dolores Cannon is?
I've heard that name before.
Yeah. So Dolores Cannon used to be this individual. She used to be a hypnotist, and she would do past life regressions on people. So basically, she would hypnotize people, and then she'll see what kind of life they had in the past, whether it was like, all the way to the Jesus of Essenes, or to
Did she write a book about Edgar Casey? Maybe that's right.
She wrote a lot of books. She does she wrote a lot of books. 14 of them, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I've read them all.
Wow.
And she talks about subconsciously. So when she does some of these regression hypnotist things, or when she did them, she would ask the subconscious, like the subconscious would talk about certain things. Like I remember the story where somebody was getting tumors in their body. And it was because they was always thinking about it. So they were causing their own tumors, or they were causing their own cancer, or they were causing their own elements, like sleep deprived or something like that. It could be anything, right? And she said that subconsciously we are able to heal ourselves. So me being a book reader, understanding and all this other stuff, even today I tried to look to see if there's some type of evidence in that. And a lot of people say there isn't, but sometimes I wonder how much of this stuff that we bring onto ourselves, and then how much of it is brought onto us from, like, for example, serving in the military. When you both were talking about the Air Force, I was aviation, the chemicals that we were around, breathing it in, touching it. I mean, not just only breathing in, but it's coming in contact with our skin. So it's coming into our bodies, and how much of that causes these issues to get worse than what it is. Like you was talking about earlier, Chris, about the genetics and stuff like that. People can have a genetic mutation in their body that can be activated when something causes it to activate, right? And I know with my sleep paralysis and learning about astral projection and then lucid dreaming, you said you've experienced that, right?
Oh yeah.
So have you ever tried to control your dream?
I've gotten where at one point I could wake myself up because I knew what was happening. But I've stopped being able to do that for some crazy reason. Now what happens is I will kick or punch something, and the action of my fist stopping against the wall wakes me up, which that's a little scary.
Dang. Yeah. I bring that up because all these things at one time happen. Like you said, when you went to the doctor for, like, when you was talking about the shoulder thing, they're only going to look at what's that. They're not going to look at what could be causing it from a mental side of things. And that's why I brought up how much of this is controlled through our minds and how much of this is controlled that we bring onto ourselves because of our service around certain chemicals and stuff like that. And if we think about it like our mind, a lot of us try to forget these things. Like when I have pain somewhere, I'm like, yo, why is this pain here? And I get scared. I go to the VA and they be like, oh, it's nothing. And I'm like, what? It's pain. I was like, it doesn't make sense. Like, and then I think about my age. I'm 42 years old. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I don't really ever really remember having pain growing up. So maybe this little pain that I'm feeling now could be going crazy. But when I was talking about my headaches, when I got blown up in Afghanistan, I have poor blood flow to the right side of my brain. I can't remember what kind of condition they call it, but I have poor blood flow to the right side of my brain. And I actually had two minor strokes. And they found those two minor strokes because they was doing an eye test on me. I'm actually waiting for glasses to go take a eye exam again because my vision's been getting blurry more. But they found these two strokes because they found like plaque inside my eyes and my veins or something like that. And they said they said that's a sign of a stroke. And I do remember one time I did have a moment when I was at one of the hospitals where I was just stuck. So I don't know. You know what I'm saying? They didn't do any tests. So that could have actually been that moment when that was happening.
It's called freezing.
But, yeah, I was stuck. Like I could not move. I could not talk. I was at the dinner table. I was just stuck for like 30 minutes, 30, 45 minutes. Couldn't do anything.
They told me mine was the result of a complex migraine, which I have bad migraines. I get them all the time, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. They said I had a really bad reaction to what they call a complex migraine that happened in the motor center of my brain. And so that's why I froze. My feet froze to the ground as I was going to the door to the garage, and I could not move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. I was frozen that way for like 15 minutes.
Yeah. That's how I was at the table. It felt like 30 minutes, but I could definitely say it was for a while. It wasn't no, just easy, simple moving thing. Let me ask you this. So for both you guys, let's start with you, Fat Jesus. Do you, and you probably say you don't, because I know you say you lost a lot of guys out there.
No, not a lot. I lost a few. I know it feels like a lot, but it's not a lot. It's
how many of the people do you keep in contact from that time period, or do you?
They're no longer on Earth. Like they're gone. Rest in peace. So I've tried contacting them, and I found out that I think most of them either committed suicide or have died from ailments from like what he's talking about, ALS or
cancer and stuff.
Yeah, cancer. I'm very, very fortunate. Actually, I'm not even supposed to be alive right now because of the surgery. I'm alive today. In fact, I faced suicide as well when I was in 1999, around 2000, when my son was born. I didn't even know I had a son because my mind was so out of it. I didn't even think the world even existed. And a veteran reached out to me because of the Obama era. Like Obama had these programs and all this DEI, we're going to close this down. Well, those programs actually saved my life because I was going to end my life pretty much. And it's not a conscious decision to do so. It was like something that there was no other way in my life. It was pretty much I was living under a bridge. I had no money. I did not have my disability was at 10%. Nobody would listen to me. My files were heavily redacted. In every time I went to the VA, they ignored me, and things were just so bad. And because of my mental condition, I kept on running away from the VA because I thought nobody cared about me, and it was all in my mind, really.
That's I remember when I was in the hospital, I had this sergeant major who was in Vietnam, and he told me everything that I needed to do, and I'm glad I listened to him because it helped me out in where I'm at now. I talked to maybe 3 people that I've back at that time frame. I don't think a lot of people were as close as I thought they were back then. I think it was mostly because you hung out with the crowd that best fit with you at that time. So that was mostly for me, as far as that. But most of the people that I don't really talk to too much of the same people that I deployed with. A lot of them passed away, fortunately. Sergeant First Class Stevenson, rest in peace. He was a good NCO. But crazy how he went because he actually passed away on his bike on a roundabout. He wasn't wearing a helmet. He was in one of the states where you don't have to wear a helmet. And they found we found out that he got hit or something happened to him, and I guess he hit his head on the concrete, passed away right there. And he was a medic in the military. He had probably just retired, maybe like not too long ago. I can't remember how long it was, but he was a great person, very quiet. He always looked out for his soldiers. I mean, he wasn't old. I think he's young. I think he was younger than 40 years old, if I'm not mistaken, when he passed, or right about it. But, he spent a lot of time in the military, deployed a lot. He was a medic, great medic, saved plenty of lives out there in Afghanistan, Iraq, and wherever he was at. I mean, did his job with no problem. And just to find out that, you go out on a bike ride to enjoy your day, and then boom, something happens. And I bring that up also because I was a bike rider too. I used to have an R6, a Yamaha R6, and I was coming home. This was actually, I got blown up in July 23rd of 2012. In June that next year, when we came back home, when we was already home, I was driving my bike to my house, and I was literally making a right-hand turn into my driveway, and some idiot hit me from behind on my bike and almost killed me. Literally. And what's so crazy about that is that when the cops came to say, what was you doing? Was you racing? Was you speeding? I said, no, I was pulling into my driveway. He said, well, where's your driveway? It's like literally right here. And he was like, this is your house right here? You talking about this house right here? I said, yes, that's my house. That's where I live at. He was like, okay, so, even though we survive combat, even though we survive our ideas of why we went to the service and why we went into the military, we come back and we try to live our lives the best way we can with what we like and love. But that can also cause us our early death also, right? Bike riding, you go out there riding your bike and your mind starts wandering, right? You start thinking about stuff and something, you're not paying attention and something happens. I've known guys who go out on boats and kayaks and fish and can't swim. And I'm like, man, and they go drinking out there on the boat too. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, man, come on, you guys got to be careful. You did all this just to come over here and go out, the most simplest way when it comes to the way to go, of an avoidable way. Let me ask you this, Chris. I know you're passionate about history, but you're more passionate about your history. And I know that, and I commend you on that, because I would have never known about the Kahari tribe. I think I know a lot about when anybody talks about Native American, I always bring up the Kahari tribe. And the only reason why is because most people don't know about it. Most people know about the Cherokees and everybody else,
But they're taught in school, that's why.
Yeah, but I talk about the Kahari tribe.
They'd be killing Americans, that's why.
Yeah.
They'd be scalping. They'd be scalping.
And you know what? I actually read about that. That's actually an interesting story behind scalping, which I thought too. That's more of a spiritual thing as far as honoring that person's dead, if I'm not mistaken. That's one of the Native books that I read. That scalping doesn't always mean something negative. Actually, it was actually honoring them, which was a weird way how they explained it, but I'll get into that some other time. But let me ask you this, Chris, with your passion and with everything that you have, has this stuff helped you with all your ailments that you got going on? Like, I know you don't sleep at night, so when you're up at 2:00 in the morning,
I sleep better now than I used to, thanks to melatonin and sleep, what I call it, sleep hygiene. I stay off screens late at night. I I don't read in my bed anymore. Like, there's certain things you can do to kind of help train your mind to get ready for sleep. So my sleep is a little better. I just wish I wasn't acting my dreams out again. That started back up a couple of months ago. And the only way to really counter that is to get on benzodiazepines, which I'm not going to do that because I've been down that road and it was not fun. Talk about brain fog, that'll set you back.
Oh yeah,
among other side effects.
You don't even know what year it is. You wake up and you got to have Alexa to tell you what year is it. 2026. Hopefully Alexa's not wrong.
Yeah, but yeah, I always feel like I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's like a coming back home kind of thing whenever I get into researching my history, whether it's just my family tree, even my European side of the family, or digging into their individual stories. Like I've got so many great stories that I've uncovered in my family tree from grandparents that were dead before I was even thought of. Third great grandparents. How many people really know who their third great grandparents are?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So people would be shocked if they were actually go back and spend the time, do the genealogy, go back to 3 great grandparents on every single one of your branches. You'd be amazed at what you'd uncover. There are some incredible stories out there just dying to be told. And it's kind of like what you said on our last podcast. You die twice. There's the physical death, and another death occurs when no one says your name again. You're just forgotten about.
Yeah, it's a quote by me, Rebirth of the Word. You know what I'm saying? So
and I remember
it. You're not narcissistic at all.
No. Hey,
you're just completely humble. He's just completely humble.
It's so funny you say that because I actually wear this bracelet. I got this bracelet right here. Let me take it off. It's a blue and white bracelet, and it's from the lodge. It says, "Be humble, make a difference," and that's something that I struggle with a lot. I don't think I'm a humble person. I'm probably far from it. I try every day to be a humble person, and it does. I know a lot of people see the comments that I make on Twitter and X. That's not even close to what I want to say. I do a lot of promoting on Twitter and X. I actually space it out where it's like I might be on there all day because I schedule posts. I actually keep 30 posts scheduled. So instead of me, posting something on X, I go through things and I, of course, interact with people because it brings attention to me, right? People get curious, hit on my profile, see that, I'm an author and scholar and so on and so forth. And they can make the decision to go from that point on, but I use it to my advantage. But I can say for a fact that I struggle with being humble. And I think the reason why is because when I was in the military, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to run the fastest. Even though I couldn't, I wanted to run the fastest. I wanted to do the most push-ups. Even though I couldn't do the most push-ups and max them, I still tried. But I noticed when I was in the service or even throughout my life, like I was telling you guys earlier, it was easy for me to follow orders. Okay. My pops put fear in myself. If I got in trouble, he whooped my ass. And I didn't like getting my ass whooped. So
that kid you see in the photo all the way on the right there was the best. I was the fastest runner. I did the most pull-ups and the fastest pull-ups without being exhausted. And whenever I did sit-ups, I was so fast that the person was counting, couldn't keep up with the count. And push-ups, I was beyond. Yeah, and I was training for those 4 years as a cadet to be the best. And when I made it to the MEP station, I was beyond everybody. And when I made it to basic training, I was so good that the people that were lagging behind held us behind. Mm-hmm. And there was one kid that held us behind that I set my ego aside and I fell behind. I was always in the front. And then I slowed down and I started running next to the kid. And then when people started seeing me running next to the kid, the whole team started running next to the kid behind us. And then we reset. And then when the TI saw that, holy shit, she was gonna cry. We had a woman TI. She was fucking proud. She was fucking proud when she saw it because he was gonna get kicked out. because he couldn't keep up with the group. But he was so smart, dude. And I tell you what, we have to have intelligent people in the military, the smartest of the smartest. And he was extremely smart. He was one of the smartest kids. I was like, man, just the physical fitness itself, that shouldn't kick him out. That shouldn't make him ineligible.
Bullshit.
So
I'm a firm believer of that. If you can't pass physical, you don't need to be in the service. I don't care how
made
smart
sure he passed, and he passed.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm a firm believer. If you can't pass a PT test, your ass needs to get out. We
were the only group that unselfishly we pulled it behind. She even pulled me aside and says he was literally this close to being kicked out until you did what you did, and now because of that, we can't kick him out. So so we continue to do what we did, and we were pretty proud of it. It was like a protest because we were fucking pissed at the drill sergeants and being bullied around and pushed around, waking us up early in the fucking morning. We actually pulled together as a fucking team, and we didn't give a shit about anything else. You could yell at us, you could do whatever you want to us, but we were a fucking team. We weren't individuals anymore. We were,
and that's what I was saying earlier. Is that in the military, I think most of the people that hung out with each other, they just hung out with each other because it was what they were familiar with. We're almost. I'm gonna give it another 10 minutes. Maybe I do definitely. I will say this now before we end it. Before I forget, everybody that's listening right now,
Chris, make a movie out of that. You know what I'm saying?
Chris right here. Yeah, we should.
Right? I need to write that down because I never thought about this being a movie or something like that. But now I'm thinking about my experience. Should probably be a movie.
Do it.
I should write about it. I never thought it would be interesting enough, but watching enough of these movies, and you know what? I can't even watch most of these military movies because and Battlefield 6, I can't even play that game because the sounds really activate me. So,
yeah, I do want to give a shout out before we end this. That Chris, he's an author of 2 books, one on Kindle ebook and one that's the Kalahari Tribe right there.
Yeah,
that's the one right there.
That's the one, the blurry photo right there. Yeah,
can't see it.
But yeah, I want to give a shout out to Chris because we are going to have more discussions. The reason why we talked about this, I honestly didn't have an agenda on what to talk about. I just wanted us to have a discussion amongst us veterans and about our ailments and what goes on, because maybe we'll be able to help somebody say, hey, these guys struggled. Maybe I can take some pointers and go through some things like that with them. But I can say to take out of all this, a passion to do something after the military service helped me a lot with depression, being sad, angry, mad all the time and stuff like that. I got to say that, reading plenty of books and watching plenty of documentaries and just history and creating my website, becoming an author. I never really liked the word content creator, but I guess you can say I'm that because I do have a boots on ground series on my YouTube channel where I go visit different places. And me and Chris are actually going to meet up in the future. I'm going to go visit him up there in North Carolina. They actually have a Cherokee museum up there in North Carolina.
Why are you going to go bother that man? Why are you going to go bother
me and him been talking about this for a while. Matter of fact, we started talking about visiting each other after I posted a video of Pilot Mountain that I went to go visit up there in North Carolina.
Sweet.
So yeah,
I'm going to take a picnic basket up the Pilot Mountain.
Picnic basket. Boo boo. Hey, boo boo.
I'm telling you, and you know what? And I feel like I've met, when I first talked to Chris and first met him and had a discussion with him, I felt that he was an individual that was.
I'm glad you guys are going to hold hands and go out there and enjoy each other, and Air Force and Army together.
But like I was saying, I think he's a great individual, and I highly recommend reading his book. He's a best-selling author, #1 best-selling author. So he can put that on his credentials now, which is amazing because I believe that his first book should be a bestseller also, but it's a bestseller in my eyes when it comes to Native American, because it's a very informative and personal book. Not only does he talk about his history, but he talks about his personal lifestyle and what geared him to write this book and why he wrote it. And that's some of the stuff that we talked about earlier. With Fat Jesus, you know, I met him on here too. He's a very entertaining guy. You know, he does acting classes.
He met me through Tridactyls, and I'll tell you why I do what I do. I worked in the Air Force, and most of the time where I traveled is out of uniform. Where we went, the other governments didn't know we existed, and even till this day, it's classified. Like the stuff that I did is redacted, and if you try to look it up, it's going to be redacted. How convenient, right? If you go look it up right now, oh, check out Fat Jesus, and it's like, oh, he's lying, it's redacted, you know, it's like whatever he says, it's not real, you know. But the thing is that there are operations that we
the
do as
160
Americans.
That's why I brought up the 160
all over the world, and because of that, because of my experiences in life, it attracted me to the unknown, like stuff around the world, like Tridactyls and other ancient secrets around the world. What do we not know that has been kept from us, that people don't want us to know about? Like ancient tribes don't want us to know certain things. They want to keep it in-house, or secret societies. They don't want us to know what they know, because they want to keep it in-house. Those things, because I lived that life. I lived the life because we keep secrets too. So I know it exists. Once you know it exists, you become trenched into it, and you want to express, you want to be part of it, you want to explore it. And then at the same time, I run into Rebirth of the Word. I said, let's do a podcast. I was like, yeah, sure. And now everybody wants to hear what we have to say, and here we are.
Yep. So I just wanted to put that out. We're gonna hey Chris, after I finish this symbols book, I got this symbols book that I'm reading. It's like 1,100 pages.
I thought you were writing a symbols book.
Shit, man, this book has got a lot of information. Once I finish this book, I'm gonna read that book, read your book, man, and then we'll have a discussion on that, bro. Because
right on,
I really do like your information. I really am happy that you got to share your experiences and what you went through here, because I think it will help a lot of people out. I hope people get out of this, other veterans. You know, I've seen other people do podcasts with veterans and stuff. I never really did this, and I know a lot of people don't really like talking about their experiences.
I don't like talking about it.
And
I would say this for anybody out there who's listening, and like you were saying, Tyrone, stuff pops up once you're out. Once you're out of the military, these old ailments, old injuries, they get worse. Don't go through the VA process by yourself. Please, I beg you, go see a VA service officer at your county seat. Wherever you live in the United States, every county has a county seat. Go to their government building. They'll have a VA service officer there. Or get with one of these VSOs. The American Legion's fantastic, VFW, DAV. If you qualify for VFW, if you qualify for Wounded Warrior Project, there's all kinds of VSOs out there, veteran service organizations, that will help you and walk through the process with you. Doing it on your own is bonkers. Don't go Rambo on this thing. Get some help.
And if you're active duty, document everything.
Yep.
You're not taking taxpayer money. Don't get that honorable bullshit out of your head. You know, It's your body. You're an individual. You're going through this. Once you're out of the military, you're going to need every documentation for you. You're not taking taxpayer money away. There is money being earmarked for you. Once you leave the military, every single person that leaves the military or in the military, it's already being earmarked. And that taxpayer money is always going to be there. There is no zero money in the United States government. That money has already been piled on. What the government politicians want to do, they want to take the money and say there's no money in there. They want to take the money and then they want to reinvest that money into their own political means. So don't believe anything they say.
My favorite saying, as far as it goes with combat vets who are now disabled vets, is if they can afford to send us, they can afford to mend us. And that's
and they just sent us to Iran, and that's freaking nuts, man. They said they weren't going to do that, and they did it anyways. And now, how much is it going to cost us? 400 billion? Jesus Christ!
Let's before we end this. That's a great point, Chris. If the government can send us, then they can, basically heal us or help us. Do you think that we are getting the best treatment that we possibly can, or do you think that
no?
Before you answer this, I'm going to say, and I'm going to bring up this because this is something that I'm glad you said. Man, I'm so glad you said that. Marijuana. Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
Has been on this
hot topic.
It's a hot topic. It's been on this planet for years, thousands and thousands of years. Been used for all kinds of things. I know other country military, they allow their veterans to use it if they need be. Certain countries that we are actually friends with and support. And I'm not going to name any names, but they definitely help out their veterans.
There are states that allow veterans to use it.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about the states because the states don't matter. It's the federal level that matters. Just recently, they just rescheduled the drug. So that way they can do.
Did they reschedule marijuana or
psychedelics? They rescheduled marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2.
Because they reschedule mushrooms and psychedelics, but I don't know about marijuana.
Yeah, they already did that. They did that. I can't remember, a couple of months ago. But I bring that up because I know a lot of veterans who've been deployed, and all kinds of stuff, have all kinds of ailments. They say that marijuana helped them. I usually say this a lot. I don't really take my government too serious until they start looking into how that can potentially help veterans in a broad side of giving us all the help that we possibly can have, because it's been shared so many times that this one plant can help a lot of people with their PTSD, their tremors, their sleep deprivation and all that other stuff. Do you think that is something that we should be more open to, allowing veterans to experience and use as a medicinal use?
I think to look into the efficacy of it and the effectiveness of it, and to do a full-blown double-blind study, test and trial, the works, absolutely. I would put ayahuasca in there. I would put MDMA in there. Put all of them in there. Put it to trial. See what happens. I mean, that's what practicing medicine is.
Right.
Now, I'm a little different because I have Parkinson's. I don't know if I would want to necessarily be on a medical regimen for medical marijuana. I mean, I would need to see all the details of the study, because I've been on levodopa, carbidopa for so long that I'm already having hallucinations. So the last thing I want to do is drink a tea that might have some mushrooms in it and start hallucinating worse. I have auditory hallucinations, I have visual hallucinations, and that's a whole basket of not good stuff. So I would be extra careful, but that's just my case. And I don't want my case to leave a healthy therapy out of the conversation for someone else. I think it should be up to each individual. And honestly, if someone with Parkinson's is already having those hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, phantom smells, I get phantom smells all the time. It smells like war. It smells smells like Clorox burning just out of the blue. I don't want to make that worse. So that's why I would be hesitant. But that's just me, man. If another Parkinson's patient is like, yeah, I want to try it, maybe it'll help me sleep better at night, then go ahead, brother, do it. And I don't think the government should be in the business of telling us yay or nay. It should be our choice.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like you go to war, they always say, what is it? Less than 1% of people in the States join the military. So just think about the amount of people what the percentage of people are actually suffering, right? That's lower.
Right.
It's got to be less than 1%, right? Of Americans, at least, as far as veteran side with the things. But I'm a firm believer of I think when it comes to helping your veterans, the first people you should listen to is the people that it's affecting, and it's usually not the veteran itself. The veteran is already affected. We know that. The first people that we don't realize that is affected from that is the family. So listen to them, see what they say. You know, if they say, "Hey, I know, I remember some of my friends saying that when their parents, their fathers came back from Vietnam, or their grandparents or whoever it was came from Vietnam, they would, smoke some dope or some weed and stuff like that, and they would be calm as ever can be." And that was that was almost like the happy moments for that family. But as soon as they couldn't get any or something like that, the PTSD would rise and stuff like that. And I'm a firm believer of this. You can't substitute one thing without including something else. And what I mean by that is, if yes, marijuana can help you, but you also have to still go to therapy too, because you can't just go to your room or wherever you want to go and just sit down and smoke and think that 15, 20, 30 minutes is going to help you. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that kind of gets back to your question about ceremony with Native Americans. We don't just go into a sweat lodge. There's like a whole ceremony to it. We don't just smoke a peace pipe with tobacco. There's a ceremony that goes with it. There's a reason for it. You're connecting with the creator. You're connecting with the earth. You're paying respect to your ancestors. All that kind of works hand in hand. It's what in the Air Force, when I got out, they called resiliency. They didn't have religious programs. They had what was called a resiliency program. Make your body and your mind more resilient to be able to handle combat stress, and so it doesn't turn into combat trauma. That's a very native, indigenous, holistic way of looking at things. It's not just about, hey, take this pill, you'll be all right.
But that's what.
But the same thing for religion as well. I mean, it's not just the Kohabi tribe or the tribes, but religion also prepares you, like first communion for a child. You're being trained.
Yeah, but that's not military though. They don't have nothing for the military though.
But the philosophy is sound. You see, you're being trained as a child through all these processes to deal with things. And your mentality is, to prepare you for better things. I mean, like in tribal, also your mind is being prepared before you go into something. And now when it comes to military, and from my experience, I had to go through a lot of psychiatric evaluations and psychologists. Still, even to this day, I see a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Yep. And they put me through Tai Chi, yoga, all types of stuff. And it was a volunteer thing too. They didn't say you have to do this. They said, do you want to do this? I said, yeah, I volunteered for everything. And remember what I told you. I practice what I preach. Document everything. So if they're giving it to you, do it, because they're providing it for you. If you say no, then there's no documentation that you even tried.
Right on. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. I really, we definitely talked about a lot of subjects, more than Parkinson's, and that was actually interesting because it brought a perspective to me that we are all experiencing something. Most of it, I think, has to do with our mental. On top of that, our mental is what gets us. But I'm about to close this out. We are going to have another conversation with Chris right here. I got to give a shout out to him because, man, I think I'm promoting it a lot now, but he is a best-selling author right now. I can't recommend his books enough. He does have great books. I haven't read the second one, of course. I say it's great because I can just assume that what he wrote in the first one, the second one just put the icing on the cake. You know what I'm saying? And the cake is already good when you got some milk, but when you put that icing on there, it's a whole different thing. So I really do appreciate it, Chris. Fat Jesus, thanks for being here. We're going to have another
Did you ever share my video or share my image ever? You guys remember Apocalypse Now, where he says that I love the smell of napalm in the morning? That's the part right there. So you got most people get all their information are from movies and all that stuff. So
of course, Americans love doing that.
Yeah, so you could just get rid of it. But I just wanted to share that. That's where majority of everybody that never joined the military, they get all their information, their experience from movies and TV shows and their ideas from it, but they don't get their information from us, the veterans, and they don't listen to the veterans or even understand it. Like I was, and real quick before we close out, I know it's almost that time. I was asked to help out, make the sounds for military weapons for Nova Logic in California, for a game called Black Hawk Down, and also for Joint Operations. And that game no longer exists. So I can say I was part of it. I wasn't the one that created it. I was part of it. I was one of the people that were part of a voting group. But then I can tell you that I was the one that created and built one of the first open world dirt bikes. There were dirt bikes in video games, but not open world dirt bikes. So we had a dirt bike, and nobody ever had open world dirt bikes. And this open world kept on going on forever. So you could have kept on driving, and then you would have to return equally for forever to come back into this open world. But you know, that game no longer, I mean, it exists. You can try and play it. I don't know if you can play it anymore on PC, but it's one of my favorite games that I was able to get on. But I tell you what, it was not as realistic as Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 is probably the most realistic I can say, because it affects me because of the sounds all over the place. It really hits me hard. So the explosions are realistic.
Right on. So all right, I appreciate everybody from being here. Instead of saying, you know, knowledge is power for the end right here, I'm going to go ahead and just say support our troops.
Peace.
Got a little hype now, can I let it die down? I remember days in the trench. Time to go hard in, time to go all in, time to get my all to this shit. Panamera maxed out, first class flights out, Atlantic to Pacific, yeah, it's lit.
I'll never get tired